Hello, how you doing? And welcome back to the channel. So Saracens are the champions of England again. Cracking game here at Twickenham as they beat the Sale Sharks. It was back and forth. I thought from a neutral's point of view, it was brilliant entertainment. But in this video, I'm getting into all of that, getting into this game, getting into what this means for Saracens, those players and also those fans as well. So make sure you drop a comment down below. Let me know your views on the game, on the moment, on the season, everything involved with this Gallagher Premiership campaign. If you can like the video and subscribe to the channel as well, I'd massively appreciate it. But let's get into it. So Saracens 35, Sale Sharks 25, a 10-point margin of victory, but in all honesty it was one of those games that was a hell of a lot closer than that final score because both sides went at each other, the lead changed hands, and honestly probably at about 65 minutes you felt like it could really go either way. And then what was it? Was it just experience? Was it just having a little bit more quality that ultimately Saracens were able to get over the line? I think probably realistically a combination of those two things were ultimately why Saracens won this game. But before we get on to the end of it, I want to look back at the first half because Saracens led, but it was a close game at half time. What was it? Saracens 20, Sale 13, so a one-score game at half time. And I wrote down in my notes here that it felt like Sale had been able to keep in touch in that first half without necessarily doing too much. And I think the stats back that up at that point in the game. I had a quick look at half-time and the territory was around 60% to Saracens. The possession not quite that heavily in their favour, but even so, Saracens had more of the ball. And I just had this feel that everything Saracens had done pretty much, Sale had been able to match them in that they traded penalties early on in the game. Then Saracens scored a try and Sale were able to get a try of their own, and then obviously Saracens got another try to have that one-score lead at half-time. But I felt like Sale was still in the fight without having done too much really. And actually I thought that first half, the best analogy is probably that of boxing, because it felt to me like a big world title boxing bout where neither fighter wanted to get knocked out in the first 40 minutes. They traded shots, they both did a little bit, but they didn't necessarily try and land that haymaker. So it was a really entertaining game, I thought, from a tactical point of view. And then in the second half, it was just sensational because Sale came out the blocks brilliantly, scoring a couple of tries. They started to get quicker ball. I thought one of the features actually of the first half was how Saracens were able to slow down Sale ball and really make it hard work for them at the ruck. They didn't necessarily get too many turnovers at the breakdown, but what they did do was able to slow that ball down. I thought in the second half, Sale were able to get a bit quicker ball, and that's when we started to see them score more tries. And really, when Sale had that momentum, in fact I think I wrote it down here somewhere, particularly when they got that 50-22 which bounced over the head of, can't remember whether it was Good or Daly, bounced towards him, bounced over him and into the corner, and it gave them a 50-22. And I wrote in block capitals in my notes, momentum, because this was a game that at various points you felt like one team had momentum, and if they could capitalise on that, then they were going to give themselves an unassailable lead. But they weren't quite able to until Saracens did it at near the end of the contest. Because if you look at it at half-time, Saracens 20, Sale 13. Okay, it's a one-score game, but I was looking at that and I was thinking if Saracens get another try early on in this second half, then that all of a sudden becomes quite a big deficit for Sale to get themselves back into. But they were able to ride that out brilliantly, and in fact the scoreline flipped. The scoreline flipped to the point where Sale were in the lead, and then at that moment in time they were getting the 50-22. They had a lot of momentum, and I was thinking, well, now it looks like if Sale are able to capitalise on this momentum and this field position, then they could almost be out of sight. And it was a fascinating duel back and forth in that regard. Again, Saracens were able to ride that out, and eventually they went up the other end and were able to score more tries and got the victory. But as I say, I thought it was a really, really brilliant game. And I've just been down pitch side. I was here doing post-match interviews for radio, and the thing I asked Mark McCall and the thing I asked Alex Lazowski when I spoke to them from a Saracens perspective was how this compares, because they've had a lot of great days, Saracens, as a club. If we talk about European triumphs, if we talk about other premierships that they've won, they've had a lot of brilliant days out. How does this compare? And they both said it's difficult to judge because they all mean a lot. Every victory means a lot. But Alex Lazowski was really interesting because he said to me, this is the best one. This is the best one yet, which I think says an awful lot about how much it means to the club. When you think about what happened last year, and they've been quite candid in the fact that they felt they didn't didn't really show up in that final against Leicester. They didn't put their best foot forward and ultimately lost that final. And then also, if we go further back with the points deduction, the salary cap breaches, the relegation from the Premiership and going into the Championship, and the kind of negativity around the club, some of which was obviously very, very valid, but some of which the club has always felt was a little bit unfair. I think because of all those things, it's kind of a concoction of just this game meaning so much to Saracens, to this club and to those players. And do you know what? On the balance of what we've seen this season, they've been the best team in the Premiership all year, and they proved it today. And likewise, Sale have been the second best team, and they proved it today. I also mentioned in my preview video some concerns about the crowd we had here. I think it was about 61,800 something, which is pretty good going, and actually the atmosphere was really, really good. The Sale fans made themselves heard massively, which I expected really, 17 years since the club has been in a Premiership final. So great atmosphere, fantastic game, and Saracens overall, I think, on the balance of this season and on this game, deserved winners. I don't think I've got too many other things to mention. I've got so many notes in front of me. I was making notes of things as I went along. It's hard to pick out individual players. I actually thought Sam Dugdale for Sale did really, really well. Came into that back row, obviously Ben Curry injured, he was hobbling around on crutches here today. I thought Dugdale did really well, which won't shock any Sale fans because they would have seen him play this year. Another one of those players that has come through their academy. I thought he did really well in that back row. The one other thing actually that I do want to mention was taking off Manu Tuilagi. Now I know Manu doesn't play 80 minutes, they always replace him, but in that second half, when Sale really started to get momentum and looked a lot more threatening with ball in hand, because they didn't play a huge amount in the first half, I didn't think, Sale. They box kicked it a lot, they took territory, they took the points on offer when they got those penalties, but they didn't spread it wide as much. In the second half they did that more, partly because of what I mentioned already, they got quick ball, and a big part of that I thought was Manu Tuilagi having a bigger impact on the game, and all of a sudden getting to softer shoulders and really being a handful. I thought Manu in that second half looked fantastic, and they took him off, which basically gave them three playmakers in that midfield. Now I know maybe, and they'd have had the kind of live conditioning stats that they get these days of whether Manu could have continued, and maybe it was time they had to take him off, but I thought if there was any possibility that Manu could play the 80, this was the game he needed to do it in, because of how it was panning out and because of the impact he was having on the contest. And when he went off, I just felt like Sale lost something in attack, in their ability in that midfield to get over the game line. But I don't know, maybe it's just one of those things, they had to replace him, they left him on as long as they could. You can let me know your thoughts on that down below. I'll leave it there as it's finally started to quieten down here. As I just look around me, there are a lot of fans waiting for the players and autographs and pictures and all that sort of thing. It seems to have just quietened down a little bit as the ground starts to empty. But this was the Premiership final that we needed. It has been an awful season for the Premiership because of what happened to Wasps and Worcester, because of what's currently happening with London Irish. But I thought this game delivered. Brilliant day, beautiful day, fantastic game of rugby. So leave a comment down below, let me know what you made of it. Also like the video, subscribe to the channel, and that's it, end of the season. But it all turns our attention to the World Cup pretty soon, so loads of build up for the World Cup to come on the channel. Make sure you are subscribed, and I will see you in the next one.